I'm Dr. Bryan Wright, and this is Run to the Huddle. Well, I had a great friend ask me recently, how to deal with imposter syndrome. And frankly, it's not just about imposter syndrome. It's about how do we deal with the energy that we bring into a space. You'll hear me say a phrase quite a bit that I firmly believe, and I want to tell you that phrase is literally state is king, and it's changed my life for the better. And what do I mean by state is king? Well, my emotional state, the physiology and the emotional state that I'm in is paramount to everything else. So in this particular session where we talk, I want to dig into a little bit more detail, how it all works together, how we can really truly find the confidence in a room to lead by that courage that we can feel deep down inside. Because imposter syndrome is the feeling that we don't belong in the space and the things that we're speaking about are not authentic. So when it's time to be in a group, even in this setting right here, this podcast setting, this is pretty new to me. I've been in front of cameras before. I've had the opportunity to speak on multiple levels, and I can tell you by experience, the imposter syndrome will creep in at every stage. I think at times it can get better. There are times where you can feel like I belong here. I have gotten feedback from enough people and they are saying, hey, this was wonderful. And that can help. That can really help. But feedback in and of itself is actually a double-edged sword when it comes to imposter syndrome. Let's dive into that for just a little bit. I had a favorite author of mine write a book. It makes me laugh when I think about it because he said he tries not to take feedback for any kind of indication of how he's doing. And he said, one of my favorite examples of this was when I wrote his, at this point, best-selling book, but at the time it was a brand new book as an author. And he got 2 pieces of mail in the same day. The first piece of mail was, this book changed my life. It literally changed everything about my life. What do you think the second piece of mail was? It was the opposite of that. It was this is a literal pile of crap, should be burned. Give me 2 copies, one so that I can, throw in the garbage and the other so I can throw it in the fire. And what he did was, to me, very telling of how we can build confidence within and overcome imposter syndrome. He sent a photocopy of the letter that said, man, this was the most amazing book I've ever seen. He took that photocopy, wrote at the very bottom of it, you may be right, you may not be. And he sent that photocopied letter back to the person who sent the negative letter. Of course, he did the opposite with the negative letter to the positive feedback person, say, you may be right, you may not be. It was more of an exercise for him, showing that if you live by compliments, you die by criticism. I think it's very important to get feedback, but we have to be very thoughtful in how we approach feedback. If you're asking anyone and everyone what their feedback is, especially in a world where social media will just shove feedback down your throat, whether it's the absence of any feedback, which is almost worse to me than negative feedback, or it's a ton of people placating you or puffing you up or saying that was so amazing. I think it's important to find people in your life that you trust with feedback that will tell you the truth, but they also care about you. This is a very, very important principle to me. I do not seek feedback from people who do not care about me. I don't. Because in the end, whatever form that feedback would come in, if they don't care about me, it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative. It's not valid. So number 1 rule is, in life, find 1, 2, maybe a handful of people that you can trust to give you honest feedback that care about you. That's very important. It doesn't mean go out and seek their feedback every time, because there's another layer to that. I only want to seek feedback from people who actually have done the thing that I am striving to do. So for example, even when I'm shooting this podcast, I've got people who are marketing experts in the room that are helping set up all of this amazing technology. I'm going to ask them because they have a vested interest in how we do as well, and they also have expertise in how these things go. What do I need to change? What do I need to improve? First of all, thank you to the team that has set this up here at this podcast, Scott and Kyle. I really appreciate you guys, and I think it's worth a shout out to you for the work that you do there, and I would ask their opinion. I also know that they're going to give me real feedback. So those are the two components. I know they care. I know that they're going to give me honest feedback. And I know that the marketing team has gone the distance with podcasts. There's also a third component. I wouldn't ask somebody who I wouldn't want to trade places with in that category, right? So a lot of people have a lot of advice. You start getting caught up in everybody's voices, it begins to create imposter syndrome nightmare, because you begin to hear this voice, hear that voice, and they never fully go away if you give it any kind of wiggle room to get inside of your mindset, your unconscious mind. Unless you resolve those things, those negative voices, or those we'll call it non-relevant voices, then you're going to feel, when you step into a room, imposter syndrome. So that's probably the first part of that. I'd say the second part that has been vital for me, and I've really watched over time, when do I feel the most imposterish? And when do I feel the most confidence? There really is no substitute for preparation. There just isn't. In fact, there's a phrase that I live by that says, if you are prepared, you will not fear. And I think that's a very true point. But prepared for what? Like, what do we mean by prepared? Like, I've done 500 podcasts before, so therefore I have no reason to fear doing it. Well, you wouldn't even start in that case. So what do we mean by prepared? I think number one, it's important to prepare by thinking of who it is that you can serve. There's something about getting out of yourself and thinking about who it is that you're serving that begins to dispel imposter syndrome. You start thinking of other people. You're concerning yourself with what impact can I have for them without dismissing your own needs and wants. I would never dismiss my own needs and wants in that category, but that preparation dispels fear and dispels imposter syndrome. I would say a third part of that piece of getting rid of imposter syndrome is who or what are you connecting to as the source of your true and deepest feedback. Some people call this the divine mirror. When you look in the divine mirror, it gives you the purest, highest reflection. And when you choose to turn to that divine mirror often, whether it's in your mind, the creator, or whether it's in your mind, God, whatever it is that resonates with you for that divine mirror that shows you your highest version of yourself, you want to turn to that mirror much, much more frequently than when these imposter syndrome ideas come into your head from maybe a social mirror or a skewed funny mirror that you have of your own self. This is a pragmatic example. Pragmatic meaning, like, I practice turning to the divine mirror morning and night. So when I go to bed, gratitude, and I practice imagining the very best version of myself. I do practice that. Not all the time, but I practice it often. And then I practice it in the morning again, envisioning the highest version of myself. And in my case, I actually talk to God. So I'm praying while I imagine so that I can have a conversation about things that are actually meaningful. And for me, it might come in the form of, here's something that if you did better, if you just took this little step further, you would feel more confidence, because true confidence comes from trusting yourself. Now, just think about the breakdown of that word, because confidence to me is the opposite of imposter syndrome. Confidence, right? Fide actually means trust or loyalty to oneself. The more you can do what you say you're going to do, the more fide, the more trust and loyalty you have. Con means with, by the way, in this case. So fide with oneself. Confidence means you have trust and loyalty with yourself. The more you can show up to what it is that you say you're going to do, the more you will have confidence, even in unfamiliar situations. So I got to remind myself of this all the time. Like last week, we did a business leader apprenticeship, and it was about inside out leadership. And one of the things that was a component to that was having integrity, which literally means I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. And so I committed to, what are the little things that I say I'm going to do that when nobody's watching, I can do. There's no substitute for doing the things you say you're going to do when nobody's watching. There is no substitute. So that commitment to myself has actually led to more confidence this week. Imagine that. Like, I've watched myself when nobody else was watching do the things I said I was going to do. I started a program that has challenged me to my core. and has really, like, when nobody else is watching, I'm working out till midnight outside sometimes because I promised myself I would. I don't know if that exercise is actually going to help my body, but it's certainly helping my confidence. Now, I would say there is a third part to all this. So first of all, know the right kind of mirror to look through. Turn to that source often. Turn away from social mirrors that are not useful to you. Make sure you understand what kind of social mirror actually will help you. We talked about those pieces. Turn to the divine mirror. Number 2, do the thing and you shall have the power, which just means do what it is that you say you're going to do. And I would say number 3 is to remember this core concept that your state, your emotional state, trumps everything else. Your emotional state guides the entire process. So if I can get into the emotion of confidence, the emotion of expertise, and we'll go into just a little detail on how I do that and how it can help you. But if you can get into that state of emotional confidence, some people would say, well, are you faking it till you make it? I consider faking it till you make it a surface level thing. I don't find it useful. I think it's even more imposter syndrome. That's the definition of imposter, is you're like faking it when deep down inside it's not there. What if you've not experienced the expertise that you want to experience and you're trying to get there? That's where state is king comes into play. And this is where the beauty of your imagination comes into play. I'm smiling in my head right now because I don't even know what's going to come next out of my mouth, but here it goes. I'm going to quote Willy Wonka, right? Nothing in the world compares to pure imagination. And I think if you hear the song in your head like I do, just let it keep rolling. That song is probably one of the best tutors in pop culture for how you can get into an emotional state. You get into that emotional state through pure imagination. So take a deep breath, slow down, close your eyes if it helps, and remember times when you felt confident in something. Remember times when you stepped into a room and made a difference and you felt it at your core, and let that soak in and let that imagination continue to perpetuate it. If it's for half a minute, start there. If it's for a minute, lean into it. If you can go for 3 to 4 minutes, the more intense, the longer, and the more senses that you can incorporate, the more that you'll get that deep down, inside out approach to that feeling. Then you're not just faking it till you make it. You're actually imagining it till you make it. Confidence comes from trust and loyalty with oneself. And the more one can feel the emotion of that, the more it shows up in the physical reality. So it's the way I think every great leader has succeeded, or every great venture has been accomplished, is at some point they had the faith to believe that they could, and despite some resistance, some fear, they leaned into that. And so those are the 3 things that I would recommend. Really understand who you would take advice from. If you get advice that's bad and you let it absorb in you, it's important to resolve that. There are ways to do that we'll get into at later episodes, I'm sure. Number 2 is to make sure that you are truly turning to a higher source in that process, and that you are integral to what that higher source is telling you to do. So you're showing up and doing the thing. I think it was Ralph Waldo Emerson that said, do the thing and you shall have the power. And I've just seen it over and over again. And number 3 is that inside out approach of imagining purely what it is that you want to feel. The emotion is what matters. If you can get all 5 senses involved and prolong it, it will become that much more wired, which is a phrase I like to use a lot. That which gets fired gets wired. With regard to neurological systems and how we want to show up, you can change the way that you feel about situations, literally. Neuroplasticity is a real thing. That just means that the nerves can change and adapt as you go. So that which gets fired gets wired. And so this is basically how I would approach imposter syndrome. At some point, every single person feels like they're an imposter. Even the people who have succeeded before, they feel like they're an imposter in some scenario. I've got to admit, even here before the camera here and the microphone, there's times when I even feel that way. And I've done a lot of these things. When I hear that imposter syndrome pop up, I technically follow these 3 steps and then jump in, because I'm not going to get any better by staying on the sidelines. So I hope this was helpful to you.